Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for coming to this CARD-EGLE quarterly meeting. It's being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube within a day. So be aware of that. If you're new to the group and you want to make a comment or something, please let Beth know your contact information. We do keep attendance so that when it's time to vote on card issues, we can know who's been there 3 of the last 5 meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Hey Bob, you need to put your last name on so some people who don't know you on the screen, so you're not just some person wandering off the street. Anyway, so and the best way to view this is to go to gallery mode up in the upper right in your Zoom on a computer, and you can make the gallery bigger or smaller, and the screen share bigger or smaller as you like in real time. So with that, anything I'm missing? I don't think so. I'm going to turn it over to Beth to talk about the May minutes. And I think I have those up here someplace. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you, Roger. So the May minutes were there for everyone to check out. Are there any comments, changes before we take a vote?
I did make some last minute changes to my section just to clarify a couple things, but nothing.
Thank you, Roger. Do I have a motion then to approve the May minutes?
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Great. The minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate it.
Well done.
Well, I didn't get an official
And
handout.
I should turn it over to Jack. I'm sorry. Our Executive Director, Jack Eaton. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here today, and I'm glad that everybody has joined us. We're just going to proceed through the agenda, which is on your screen right now, starting with the EPA. Is there an EPA representative who would like to comment today?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize that the video component is not working. All I'm seeing is the EPA background when I hit start video. So my name is Erica Altz. I am the National Priorities Coordinator for the state of Michigan. And I just wanted to give you an update on the MPL listing process for Gelman. The 60-day public comment period closed on Monday, May 6th, 2024. We received over 150 comments, including from some of the people who are actively involved in this group. EPA and the regional office and our headquarters office are considering all the comments, and headquarters will be drafting a support document that will respond to all of the comments. In addition, we do draft a new hazard ranking system score. If the Gelman Sciences Incorporated site is still found to be eligible, it will be finalized to the national priorities list. And that is the gist of the update that I have for you. Are there any questions? Oh, I also wanted to introduce the RPM for the site. I have Anthony McGlown with me. If you want to say hello, Anthony.
Hi, is my camera working?
It's working. You did
good job.
Good. I'll keep this brief since Erica really has the updates right now, but I did just want to let you all see my face and let you know, yes, I'm a remedial project manager here in EPA Region 5, and when this site does list, I'll be the RPM. So Looking forward to it, but we'll get there when we get there. And it's nice to meet you all.
If you have any questions anywhere along the line, don't hesitate to reach out to us, Anthony.
Can you just explain what RPM is? Define that.
Yeah, sorry, I'll come back on. Yeah, remedial project manager. So that I would be EPA's primary representative and be primarily responsible for taking the site through the circular remedial process. So once it's on the NPL, you know, as long as I'm assigned, then it'll be my responsibility to take it through investigation, selecting a remedy, and then through the actual cleanup of the site.
Then how long do you stay with the site then?
Well, it depends on how long I stay with EPA and whether management wants
Okay.
to reassign me or not. So it could be a few years, could be the next 20 years.
Right.
We'll just
And
have to
then
see.
at some point you might, you know, get promoted or something, and then somebody else has to come in. So
Yeah, that's
handing off is always an issue, right?
it's a dynamic environment, but it's nice to be coming in at the beginning of the site, coming out of the NPL. That's typically not too common because, as you may be aware, these sites stay on the NPL for a long time and can span multiple careers in some cases. So
Yeah. How many sites have you managed this way?
right now I have 5 total, including this one. That's about typical workload here for an RPM in Region 5.
How does this scale with the others?
They're all different. You know, it's really hard to compare one NPL site to another. There are other groundwater plumes that are of a similar magnitude, just in terms of the aerial extent. But this one's definitely up there.
Yeah, the concentrations are definitely unique.
We do
Anyway,
have
so
some.
I extend my offer to you like I do to any entity that's regulating this site. I'd be glad to sit down with you for a Zoom session or in person or whatever, and answer any questions and fill you in on some things that I've learned over my going on 31 years watching over this site as a citizen volunteer, that someday I'll be offloading to a Gen AI system that can answer those questions. But in the meantime, I can talk to you directly.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sure there are many people on this call who are a lot more familiar with the site than I am. So
Well, it's a complex site, and you know, there's a lot of things that seemingly minor things happened in the past, but it turns out they were inflection points or things that, you know, made a difference. It's good to have all that history. Anyway,
So we have a few hands in the air right now. I'm going to go in order. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Ms. Alt. I have a question about the timing. How long
Yes.
is your review likely to take? And what form do you render an opinion or a report or something like that?
So the MPL listing process can take up to a year from proposal to finalization. And at this point, I can't speculate as to how long it'll be.
Okay. And then following up, to the extent that this site is listed, and we certainly all hope it is here on this call, is there an administrative appeal review, or is that through the court system? Because we, as they've done all along, we anticipate there to be opposition from the successor corporations to your finding if it is to list it.
So should Gelman be finalized to the national priorities list, there is a 90-day period for a party that has commented on the proposal to initiate litigation to try to, you know, object against the finalization.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Kathy.
Erica, to follow up, when might we expect the EPA responses to the public comments?
So when the EPA makes its decision one way or the other to finalize, or if it, you know, we would issue the support document with that particular rule at the same time in tandem.
So the decision and your responses to the public comments are going to come at the same time?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, James.
Thanks, Jack. Mr. Reister kind of asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but kind of further in follow-up. So once the so let's say that the EPA does rule in the affirmative, and that is listed for MPL. And Erica, you mentioned that there's an appeal process.
Yes.
Once that is satisfied, and that if that appeal is denied, what happens then to the how does the US EPA interface with the state? And considering that we're still working under a court decree from the state. And by the way, before you answer that, Erica and Anthony, thank you for being here today. We appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. The answer here is not going to be very satisfying, but it's going to be a process. I think that's one of the first things we'll really have to work out as we get closer to the listing is this transition period from federal enforcement or from state enforcement to federal. So more details about that will be coming as we go, but I don't really have any clear answers for you just yet.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks, Jack. So I had just want to make a comment to keep people aware that we have done, or EGLE has done some tests in Ann Arbor for near surface groundwater contamination that could potentially expose homeowners in their basements where the water is contaminated, gets into the basement, evaporates. We have an article that's published in an international journal. Rita Locke-Caruso, former retired professor of toxicology at University of Michigan, and Bob Bailey, Dr. Bob Bailey, former chemist and owner of a company that did analysis, chemistry analysis. They published an article that was accepted and peer-reviewed. And just a concern we have is that we've had 49 part per billion in West Park in the groundwater. EGLE was not willing to do effective groundwater testing, near surface groundwater testing. So we had EGLE, which they agreed to do, test the waters that flow through West Park through a drain that showed contamination up to 49 part per billion, with lots of basements in the area being very wet year-round, pretty much. I'm coordinating member for the Allens Creek Watershed Group, also a board member of CARD. And we've talked to many people over the last 30 years that we've been involved in watershed issues about wet basements and what people can do about wet basements. And now we have to deal with this contamination potentially getting into homeowners' basements and affecting their property value, their exposure potentially to 1,4-dioxane as a vapor. I hope we have more studies to evaluate the potential for exposure. We haven't had much help from entities in the Ann Arbor area, but I hope we could get more data collected and more analysis. The other thing I wanted to comment on is Rita Locke-Caruso is also involved with Yale University, and she can comment on that if she wants, but they're interested in 1,4-dioxane contamination and have come to Ann Arbor to discuss it with us and have grants currently to evaluate exposure. So just to keep people up to breast on it. So thanks much.
Thank you, Vince. Go ahead, Glenn. You're mute.
Anthony, thanks for being here. I'm wondering what other sites in Michigan for which you are the RPM.
Yeah, so I'm a co-RPM on the K&L Avenue landfill site. That's another 1,4-dioxane plume just west of Kalamazoo. That's probably obviously the most comparable to this one. And then there's another one called the High Mill Manufacturing Company. That's up in Highland Township near Brighton.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead and put your hands down if you're done speaking. I want to remind everybody that there are links on the agenda that will take you to the comments that were submitted to the EPA. Those are all pretty interesting. Georgia, do you have anything update us on?
The one thing that I wanted to note is that we have been keeping up with the information on the NPDES permit hearing and info session that Eagle had scheduled. We know it's in the evening, and Congressman Dingell herself plans to be involved with that too. So we've got it on our calendar and looking forward to what information that gives us in a couple of weeks here. Nothing else besides that. Nice to see everyone.
Did you have a date for that? I'm sorry, I must have missed that.
Yes, it was posted. You have to click off of the email that we all had circulated around with one another. But I saw that it was on the 20th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m.
It's on the agenda too, with links
okay.
to register. They're asking to register ahead of time.
Yeah, with it being virtual, I think that's how you get your access information too.
Thank you very much. I didn't see Dan Bicknell come in. So are there any other comments or questions regarding the EPA before we move on?
I'll have one item that Dan and I talked about during my update.
Okay, thank you. Josh, do you have any comments to make today?
I do not. Chris is not here. I know he sent a written update, and there's no really new information in that that has changed, but I can answer any questions anybody has at this point.
So I understand that he's.
Maybe I can't answer any question. I can respond to questions. How's that?
Gee, are you a lawyer? Anyway,
no, but I played one at work before.
I understand that Chris is in EPA training today. Is that part of the handoff, or is that just something that your department goes through anyways?
Yeah, it's we were lucky to get EPA to come here to train us. They do trainings on Superfund, basic 101 steps around the country, but we had enough people interested, and so it's a standard thing that we do. But they're here in Michigan, so we sent a lot of people actually from our Superfund group and our district offices to get trained up on CERCLA.
I take that as a good sign. Alrighty.
It is.
Are there any questions or comments about Eagle's involvement here?
Well, actually, everybody saw my email response about why Chris isn't here, and it's because he's in training. And so my issue was, I thought maybe the training was just for the Gelman issue on EPA, but now that I see it's for a wider thing, I understand how the conflict, the scheduling conflict happened, and that it couldn't be avoided.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, because these quarterly meetings are very important, because that's the only time we get to talk to more representatives from Eagle. So I'm glad we have you at least, and we can always make up for it by having Chris come to a regular monthly meeting.
Sure.
Once these, I'd like to know what they learned. What do they teach? And then get some feedback on that. So that maybe you can do that in the July or August meeting for us. Appreciate that. Thanks.
What Roger is really saying is he wants to go to the next one, but that's beside the point.
No, I don't want to go to it. I just want to have a video of it.
Go ahead, Beth.
Oh, well, while we're on the Eagle updates and there's the NPDES meeting, is there anyone that wants to talk about that, Roger? Or, is CARD, are we just going to attend as citizens? Is CARD planning on? I don't know how these work even, or what to do, but.
Yeah, Josh, can you explain because it says public meeting and hearing, and I think it's a joint thing. It starts out as a public meeting and then it goes into a hearing, a more formal hearing. Is that what the?
Yeah, there'll be a presentation in the beginning about the permit application, the process, and And then there'll be a hearing where anybody can get up and voice comments, concerns, and ask questions typically. And those are recorded for the record.
And this has
Those are
happened
part of the-
before.
those are be part of the response to comments at the end of the day.
Right. But what I remember once before is that we got a notice of a meeting like this, but it wasn't specifically spelled out as a public meeting and hearing. So the public meeting part, as I understand, the representatives from Eagle can respond to questions.
Yes.
During the public meeting, but during the hearing, they cannot. Is that
correct?
Is that still true? And that was,
Yeah, a meeting is more informal, and it was at the request. The hearing part is just we
very
listen.
formal. Yeah.
Yes.
It's all recorded, or audio recorded anyway.
Correct.
Okay.
But and that's going to be in person. Or no, this is going to be
virtual.
This is virtual again. So, does the it gets video recorded then?
I would assume so. Yes, because
Yeah.
yes, it's for the record.
Because one of the things that we always try to do in the past at hearings and meetings is record the whole meeting and have our own recording of it that we can post. I assume that we can maybe get a copy of your recording, or do I have to do a screen capture to do our recording?
You should. It's part of the public record, so it's foilable by request. I mean, you should be able to get it.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, I just want everybody to be aware that you can still make your comments like you did when you wrote in comments, and those comments are linked here on the website, and on SRSW it has a list where you can actually go in and look at each particular comment. I'll be going through that on my update too. But during the hearing part of it, you can still make comments, I think, right, Josh? But you won't get any. You can't just ask questions because you won't get a response right then.
Correct.
So if you want to hear a response, do it during the public meeting part of it. That's a key point.
All righty.
And then I think there's they'll probably explain this, but then there's a 10-day period after the hearing, so until like June 30th.
Okay.
Before they'll officially close the public comment period.
I see. So you can still write in.
Yeah, if you learn something out in the meeting or hearing that you want to comment on, you can still write in after that.
But that comment period is only regarding you're not expected to get a response.
Correct.
Those from those sent in comments.
Yeah, we just
accept
public comments 10 days after the hearing.
Yeah, so it's good to have that comment period because some people can't make that virtual meeting, obviously. But so it's good to get the good questions in early on the public meeting, and the responses are as I understand, you get responses as you ask a question, right? You don't have to wait to the end of the meeting. Josh?
Sorry, was that a question?
If you ask a response during the public meeting, you get if you ask a question during the public meeting part of that, you might get a response right away, not just at the end of the meeting. So
correct. You could get a response if they have the.
Yeah. So that might mean that somebody else might have an add-on question to that response. You know what I'm saying? So there's a dialogue, and that's important, that we keep a thread going during the public meeting, that everybody to delve deeper into a particular issue before it goes on for decision making. Anyway, thanks.
Okay. Eleanor, you had your hand up, but you took it down. Did you change your mind?
Roger asked the same question that I had,
okay.
So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks, Jack. So I would like to ask Josh how he feels about the fact that we're finding 1,4-dioxane in the near surface groundwater in West Park, and also at Slauson Middle School and several other places on the west side of Ann Arbor. It has gone as high as 49 part per billion. Rita and Bob's article indicates in a peer review article that 150 part per billion is probably a dangerous or potentially dangerous exposure for homeowners or businesses. That's a concern we have, that there's not been significant testing. We do know that there is, I would consider dangerously high levels in the groundwater in West Park at 50 part per billion. I wonder how the NPDES permit would relate to that, if that would be considered an issue that should fall under NPDES. It's from Gelman, obviously, for most people's opinions on the years of testing we've done. And I do appreciate Eagle doing the tests that they did. I just wonder how that might be viewed from the NPDES viewpoint. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see a connection there between the shallow groundwater, the NPS, or are you talking about the discharge to Allen Creek or the venting?
Well, I guess it discharges, well, let me just say this. We have groundwater in the area that's like off Fountain Street, Bath Street, lots of streets with water names related, and partly because it's a glacial till area, and we have a lot of gravel and sand and everything mixed together, making it very hard to follow the contamination. But we do know we have contamination in the West Park area, and we do have flows that go into the river, contaminating the river. So yeah, that's our concern, that we would like to have Eagle, acknowledge that issue, consider it serious, and we don't want higher concentration. We'd like to have zero concentrations in these flows, and I just would hope that we could work with Eagle and EPA.
So Vince,
Yeah,
that's a different discharge permit that they're violating in West Park. This is the Honey Creek one that they're having the public hearing on. So I'm not sure whether we're going to get to the stage where we get a public hearing on the violations of the Allen Creek discharge permit. But I think that those are important issues, but for a different permit.
well, I just would like to, try and encourage the city and the state to take a close look at that and make a determination of responsibility and potential cleanup. Because we do have quite a bit of 1,4-dioxane flowing through Ann Arbor, obviously. And, we need to get a hold of it and start mitigating those contaminations, including West Park and Honey Creek. And okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I'm obviously not the site expert or the technical expert on the site. I have heard your question before, Vince, and I understand it. I just want to put it out there that we have regulatory limits, and they're not as low as zero. I understand what people want, but we have enforcement limits that are higher than that, obviously, but that are based on risk. So I'll get with Chris and see what we know. I know. Didn't Ann Arbor do some testing in the basements? I mean, the premise of the 150 is that the groundwater is in the basement, like you said, directly volatilizing, where if it's just in the groundwater and it's working its way through the soil and the vadose zone up into a structure, the number is a lot higher, order of magnitude at least higher. And that's what our regulatory limits are based on. But I didn't know that we found anything in basements that was indicative of groundwater, those levels. I know we have it in the groundwater, but I guess I'll have to get with Chris on what we know at this point.
Well, I think the fact that Bob and Rita's article was peer reviewed and accepted, I think does give an indication.
I read it.
Indication of the potential exposures that may be happening. And it could be 100 part per billion. Yeah, be a concern. But 150 was what was published.
Right.
So just to make sure that, that we're not off the radar here with the contamination that we're finding. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the local units of government, and I'm going to move Scioto Township up so that Kathy can tell us she doesn't have anything to tell us before she leaves
That's what I
her.
was asking.
Kathy,
I think it's
your update.
Okay, I have no news, no updates of any sort.
And John is here on behalf of SIO as well. Do you have any
Correct.
comments or things
No.
you'd like to bring to our attention?
Refer to Kathy. No.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
I do note that the apparently the city of Ann Arbor had a sewer overflow into the Honey Creek.
To our city of Ann Arbor, or I think that was in Scioto.
Do you want to address it?
Sure.
Okay, actually, I'm attending the meeting with our utilities director,
Oh, excellent.
and he's sitting next to me. I'm going to turn over my iPad to him, and he'll respond.
Thank you.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Thanks
This
for
is
coming
Brandon
and talking
McCreek.
about this.
Yeah, this is definitely something important that I wanted to be part of, is learn about this issue that you guys are discussing. So yes, as of yesterday, I could confirm that we did have a sewer main that backed up, and it did discharge into the Honey Creek area. And due to the lack of information, I'm not exactly sure the extent of how many gallons were put into the creek. However, we are working with Eagle and the local health department here to do some testing and provide those testing results to Eagle and the local health department, and then advise the community from there. So that's currently where we're at.
So this was a SIO sewer that overflowed into the creek and not a city sewer?
Correct, the Scioto Township one.
Okay.
And
That's
where
it.
was the overflow?
So it was north of 94 and east of Zeeb. So yeah,
Get over to
you
Z.
gotta head west more, yeah. So you see that pond,
Right
right
here?
there where you're, yep. So it was just behind that, just southwest of that pond. So,
right here.
yeah, yep, it didn't get in the pond. It followed the ditch line on I-94 until it hit the creek.
Huh. So that was the sewer line that served this whole corridor up Zeeb Road.
Correct.
probably, right?
Yep, it goes down there, then it follows behind that commercial building, then it goes underneath 94 to our pump station.
So it went behind the old
No, it actually travels in front of it.
in front of it. Okay.
Yep, kind of like how you just, yep.
Right there. Okay. All right. I was speculating maybe it was because of the tear down of the Pizza Hut or whatever. But
Right. No,
Function of the hydrant.
no. So yeah, we got crews out there that are a pipeline management company. They are fully cleaning and TVing that sewer main as of right now and as of yesterday, to make sure that it's fully clean. And then they're going to provide evidence through a video that I can watch, just so that we are positive. And hopefully, SIO is about to adopt a sewer cleaning program, and this will be part of that, to clean this yearly minimum, at least once a year, to make sure this doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
No problem,
John?
sir.
I was just looking out the window to see if the if I saw anything floating down the creek here. So
Go ahead, John.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, dear.
Yes, John.
So Brandon, did it come out of a structure or a manhole?
It came out of the manhole.
Okay. And as you trace the manholes to the west, did they also have, rising effluent in those manholes as well?
Yeah. So, yeah. Basically, what we do is we pop manhole to manhole to see where that sewer backup basically ends, and then we can determine where that blockage is, and then we jet into that blockage and pull it back towards the direction that it flows. So it all flows to the pump station. So actually to clear this one, we had to jet under 94. The blockage was somewhere underneath 94. So we jetted underneath 94. It released that blockage. So as of right now, everything is flowing.
And not getting into too much detail, but are the preliminary indications that it was grease or quote unquote flushable wipes or some sort of physical blockage? Can you tell what it may have been?
Our best indications is grease and other debris, but mainly a grease issue.
Alrighty.
So when it goes under 94, does it go under the tributary or this is Honey Creek proper here? Does it stay on the north side of Honey Creek?
No, it does cross underneath Honey Creek, and then it flows after it passes Honey Creek. It travels directly west up into our pump station, and then it heads south to get into our pump station. So our pump station is right there, right where your cursor was, that green building. Keep zooming in. So one building to your left.
Oh, this one?
Yep. So it comes across 94. It flows. It goes underneath the Honey Creek, and then it travels parallel to Honey Creek on the south side of it, and then it eventually curves down into our pump station.
Okay, so Honey Creek isn't so deep that it's the pipe can be underneath Honey Creek.
Correct. Yep. It is bored underneath there.
Right. Okay. And it must cross 94, maybe back here someplace, so it doesn't have to.
Correct. I think it's.
You wouldn't want to go through all these different layers of.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just west. I'm not great with it. I think it's just west of that milk or the Honey Creek that goes underneath it as well. I think we stay to the west of that.
Yeah. Wonder if there's a KML layer, a layer that shows where all the water mains are for SIO.
Yeah, we do have a GIS that we finally got up and running.
Yeah.
It is fairly accurate. It does show exactly
Yeah.
Within parameters of where our water and sewer is with
Yeah.
all the structures.
That might be useful for me to get a KML or KMZ export so I can just put it directly into Google Earth. So something like this happens, I can pop it up and show people.
Okay.
Well, I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what a KML is, but
it's an export.
If it helps, we can definitely provide images, or even I'm sure we could probably even provide what you just asked for.
Yeah, or a map that I can overlay. But
for sure,
all modern GIS systems can talk to other in other languages, in other formats. I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Glad you were here.
So Vince, you still have your hand up. Did you have another comment? Okay. And I think that's everything from SIO. So let's move on. And is there anyone here from representing Washtenaw County? I don't see Yusuf here.
And Roger, we got an update that the staff is doing the water testing, homeowner well testing. So Roger, did you want to talk about that at all, or? They sent us a map, but that's nothing new. They won't have the results till maybe even, she said, August meeting, if not July.
Yeah, I'll cover that. I'll cover what sampling
Okay.
they're doing. They're basically sampling every place that was sampled, not every place, but generally the same general area they sampled before. And they may have the results in time for the July meeting or definitely by the August meeting. So again, prefer if they were at the meeting and then do the sampling another day, but things get scheduled and priorities get set, so we'll live with it.
So does anybody know anything about the intervener efforts of the county in the Gelman matter? I guess I'll have to reach out to Yusuf and see if he can get us an update on that. Moving along, anybody here from Ann Arbor Township? Alrighty. Is Aaron here or Patty for the city of Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have any major updates.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
So then let's move on to the executive board. Rita?
Yes, thank you. Actually, there is news from Rayle in that they're having their annual meeting, and it will be this week. It will be on, it'll be tomorrow. And I'll put the link in the chat in just a second. And they'll have presentations from each of their research projects and cores during that meeting. Someone did email me and ask if it was going to be recorded, and I do not know. I have no idea if they record it, and if they do record it, I have no idea if they will make such a recording publicly available. I did notice in their progress report, they did mention Michigan, that they are talking to us, but we really haven't seen enough action. So, you know, I'll be going to the meeting, and hopefully I will stimulate some action. Unfortunately, it feels almost like, you know, that they're interested in working with us, but they I don't know, you know, if I would write a grant, that would probably be great, but I just don't want to write a grant in my retirement. So I think that's it. I don't have any, I'll report back anything I learned that's of particular interest, I think, at our next meeting, and see how it goes. So.
Would there be anything of value?
Rita, this is Heather. We should talk when you're in New Haven, okay?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Sure, it'd be great.
It's both an in-person meeting and a remote meeting, as I understand. I'm going to be attending remotely. I assume you are too, Rita, or are you going to?
No, I'm going in person.
Are you really? Wow.
Yeah, I'm on the board. I'm on the external advisory board.
So you're flying out there today.
I'm flying out this afternoon. That's right. After this call, I'm going to eat lunch, and then I'm going to get on the Michigan Flyer bus, and then I'm going to get on an airplane. And then Thursday I come home.
Have a nice trip.
Yeah, I hope so.
Heather, do you have anything else to add today?
No, I'm curious about that. I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. So I'm going to be talking with Dr. Vasilio about what grants are coming up, what's interesting. So I think the timing is just about right for Rita and I to have a conversation about how Michigan can get some more attention from the Superfund and what exactly that would be. So I think Rita and I would appreciate your support on that and any deep thinking on that. What is the most impactful thing that if you had one grant chance, what would it be?
Right. Thank you. Seeing no hands up, I'm going to move on.
Oh, wait.
Oh, go ahead.
On my copy of the agenda, anyway. I think I'm on the right one. Yeah. Eleanor is on the. Oh, you're on item 2. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
Well, thank you. James, do you have anything, any update?
I do, but I also have Yappy Dog. So go to Eleanor next.
Okay. Eleanor, how are your interviews going?
They're going pretty well. I've done a lot so far. I should go ahead and introduce myself actually to everybody who doesn't know who I am. So my name is Eleanor. I'm a freelance journalist, but I'm also a student at Michigan State University. I'm getting a master's degree in journalism, and the Gelman plume is the subject of my thesis, which is actually more like a professional project. So I'm writing 4 long form articles about the Gelman plume, kind of trying to lay out the basic facts about it, where it's been, how far it's come, and kind of where it's going on its way towards EPA Superfund status. I've already talked to a lot of people. I've talked to Roger a lot. I've talked to Rita, Vince. I've talked to Anthony and Erica at the EPA. I've talked to Chris Svoboda. I've talked to Kathy. So, pardon me, I have a lot of the like legal and technical information background. I mean, I don't have full command of it. This topic is enormous. But at this point, I'm really looking to talk to residents or anybody who has basically just been kind of, living their life, and then the plume showed up in their well, in their basement, in their groundwater, something like that. Somebody who maybe doesn't consider themselves an expert about the plume, but is nonetheless affected by it, right? I mean, I'm a strong believer that people are experts on their own lives, of course. And if people are comfortable talking to a reporter, I'd be interested to hear about their experiences. I know it can probably be a stressful experience, painful experience, like losing your drinking water is not fun. But I would really want to highlight at least one resident's story about how this plume has affected their life. Because although it is for my thesis, the eventual goal is publication.
Right. May I also suggest that you talk to our wonderful Congresswoman who knows the political side of this. Perhaps Georgia could arrange that for you, but that would be a good insight as well. And you know that inside the city, we all have city water, and so we're not affected directly. But just to the north of the city, the townships, some of the people who rely on drinking water wells are affected. And I think that's the kind of person that you're looking for. So
exactly, or even people who maybe still live in their home who lost it, years and years ago when those first 200 or so wells were found contaminated.
So Beth has her hand up because she used to live in one of those kind of neighborhoods. Go ahead, Beth.
And I already, my neighbor is going to reach out to you, Eleanor, she emailed me yesterday, Marianne, who's lived there. That Westover Hills is the best place. If you even just have time to just go walk through there. A lot of them are the original owners and went through all of that. So yeah, good luck. I hope they do reach out to you. If I was still there, I would physically get a meeting for you, but there were some bad effects. And like you've heard from other people, that's just so sad that it was never studied, and the deaths and the leukemia clusters and this airborne spray that they sprayed that came right across the street where kids were playing in their yards. And it's just sick.
Yeah, I think the unknowns make it very difficult to report on this, but I feel like the unknowns are their own story at this point. Rita mentioned that in our interview. There's never been a human study on this exposed population. That's a problem.
Yep.
And high concentrations of dioxane they were drinking. High.
Also, if anybody watching this wants to talk, I can put my contact info in the chat, or I'm sure Beth can give it to you as well. Rita has her hand up. Hi, Rita.
Go ahead, Rita.
Okay, so it's just that not only is there not, and since we have Joshua hopefully still online, not only is there not a human exposure study or a human health effects study, but we don't even have a registry of exposed persons' addresses. Where's the centralized registry? Where's the state registry? Where's a county registry? I asked the county if they had a record of wells that were closed because of 1,4-dioxane. I was told no. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. So I do think, for the EPA, I guess we might still have some EPA people on, EPA and Josh, the registry is the beginning. It's like the first step you need to take. And I would just really encourage that. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, I just like to follow up on that and say, PCB exposures in Michigan were created, the scientists created registries to keep track of who exposed and how much they were exposed and health effects, and was significant. It was a national database that people tapped into all over. Rita's got a comment too. I'll let her go.
Actually, it was the polybrominate biphenyl fire master mix up with the cow feed. described at the time as the worst environmental disaster, pollutant disaster in the world. And yeah, the state actually paid for registry. Howard, I think Harold Humphreys, I think, did it, and then he took it to MSU, and now it's down in Atlanta. It has made many toxicologists and epidemiologists careers. Thank you.
I'm not even sure how you would now find all the people who were exposed over all of these decades. I mean, I used to live in a home that tapped water from a contaminated well, just around the corner from Gelman. And I don't know how they would chase down everybody that used to live in that area that doesn't anymore.
Well, I think they do have some addresses and wells and epidemiologists have some very sophisticated techniques that have come along for modeling and for modeling exposures. I'm particularly familiar with what happened with Camp Lejeune with the trichloroethylene exposure, because trichloroethylene was one of the chemicals I studied when I was a regularly employed and paid toxicologist. And, they did some remarkable modeling to estimate people's exposure. These things are possible, but you have to start. And you have to start with what you know. And I know, like Roger shared with me a Excel file that he had from, I don't know when, but it's ancient and it has addresses. And then you can go into the roles of the county and the city role, who lived there or what years. And you start doing this sort of detective work, and they do this stuff.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, and also the employees. It's not just homeowners, but businesses, employees were drinking this water too, and they have wells, including Gelman's employees.
Yeah, over 300 at the time, and there are records. There are employment records somewhere.
Well, and I think Gelman wanted to suppress all that early on, because I haven't seen but more than a handful of samples from Gelman's own supply wells.
Right.
There's some paper copies that show double and triple digit parts per billion in their own supply wells that were deep enough to be in the E unit at the same time that Gelman said, no, there's an extensive clay layer protecting it from the dioxin from getting into the deeper E unit. And yet their own supply wells were that deep. This is part of what I already said as a part of the EPA comments, is that that information wasn't widely shared and still isn't. I'd like to see a complete listing of all of the samples that were done from Gelman's own supply wells. Remember that they were drinking the water before there was city water out there. And one of the things they did is they used reverse osmosis to try to get rid of the dioxin from the water. And there's one of the sample locations that had RO as part of its sample name. So I think it was the effluent from the reverse osmosis system. So reverse osmosis might have been taking out some of the dioxin. And then what happened to that effluent from the reverse osmosis system? Is that what was running down the so-called Bicknell Creek into the sister lake, where the dioxin was first discovered in surface water? Was it from Gelman's reverse osmosis system? It must have been even more concentrated in the effluent than it was in the influent for that reverse osmosis. But that, if it was enough to show up in the contamination in the third sister lake, we're talking about some pretty high levels here. So I'd like to have people remember that where's the data? I mean, it's bad enough that they weren't sampling their effluent that went into the online treatment ponds and monitoring what happens once it gets in the groundwater. But we don't even have complete set of the data that they were obviously sampling from their own supply wells. And the other last point on this is that before those wells were capped, when it was, I think, Paul Corporation, maybe Danaher, when Danaher first came in, there was no final samples from those supply wells before they were plugged. And that's just unconscionable that there wasn't a final sample from those wells, at least that we have copies of. You know, some of them were non-detect, but there was at least one that was detectable levels. But the final samples, as far as I know, were never taken and shared. So I want people to remember that. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands, are there any other executive board members who have any comments or additions to our discussion here today?
What, James, did he have something?
I am talkable now.
Okay.
I am dog sitting. Just to let you know, just in terms of last month, with this group, I shared that I'm wearing my hat as vice chair of the state political committee of the Sierra Club. We had our lobby day last month, and one of the issues that we really pushed hard was water affordability, but other was polluter pay bill that we have endorsed and championed. Just an update on what's happening with polluter pay. It appears that the legislation may have some hearings scheduled. I don't know what the dates of those hearings are. I'll keep monitoring that as far as this group goes. I did have a conversation with Jeff Irwin about what the legislation would do, even if it was passed. We're obviously very positive about it in terms of the changes and even reintroducing polluter pay. But even if these reforms are passed, we are still bound under the third consent decree. And that's not going to immediately change, even with the legislation being passed. So it requires something proactive. I do have a comment about what was discussed earlier regarding the discharge into West Park. I would say, just an observation, I think we'd have the state would have greater remedies to act on that than what it has right now in terms of a proactive ability. So maybe that might make a difference. Although I am, shifting gears again, I'm sort of surprised the county has been more proactive with this issue. But at any rate, look forward to possible action in the fall session, which is in September, and short of that, action in the lame duck session, which is, of course, after the election. But there is an interest by the Democratic caucus to move forward with it, and stay tuned.
Thank you, James. Any questions or comments regarding that legislation?
Yeah, I have a question. How hard would it be for Ann Arbor or whatever to get out from under the third judgment, whatever, and get some action from the state on the Gelman contamination? I mean, what could we propose to do for that?
Well, we're currently under the fourth amended consent judgment.
Sorry, thanks.
And
all right.
I think that's what the county is up to with their efforts to be an intervener in that litigation, is to go in and try to alter that. But you have to realize we're decades after the fact, and so there are some significant statute of limitations issues, and under state law, the consent judgment might be the best that we can actually hope for, which is why so many of us here have pushed for so long to bring the EPA in. Is state remedies are significantly limited by our environmental regulations here in the state. So hopefully federal regulation will offer us better relief. Rita, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so first I have a question and then I have a comment. James, so did you learn that there's a hearing is not imminent? A hearing is sometime away? Because as I mentioned to you in a text or an email, that I was under impression that it was happening sooner.
It might be, I'm not really sure. I can check with Senator Irwin's office. The impression I had from our state legislative director from the Sierra Club was that they're consumed with the budget right now. But it doesn't mean that that Jeff or Jason may hold hearings with respect to that. So let me check on that for you. I'll take it upon myself to do so. One other thing, since I just an answer question, just to clarify, I'm talking about the state legislation. All this is absent federal intervention. So I agree with Jack. This is why we need EPA, because it would still be a rigmarole to go through, even with the new legislation we pass, as far as the government situation goes.
Okay. But I have another question or comment, and you know, James, you might want to respond to this too or not. But I think that our community, as a community, and as you know, our jurisdictions, and as individuals, have really felt negative impacts from the current weak laws. And so my question is, should CARD, either as, you know, maybe not either, but should CARD officially prepare comments in support of these bills? Or should we encourage individuals who could speak to how the current weak Michigan laws affect them? Because should individuals from CARD be writing comments or preparing comments for the day when the bills come up?
Well, we did pass a resolution calling for reestablishment of polluters pay. I can't see a reason why we can't continue to follow up and send communiques and communicate with our local delegation regarding the plume and regarding polluter pay when it happens. So I have no problem with that.
So I nominate both you two on the executive board to do a follow-up thing from CARD on that, and we can run it by everyone. Thanks.
I feel the railroad. I can live with that.
Okay. And
So
I can work with you, James.
So additionally, James, if you do learn a hearing date, let us know and we can just send it out to the entire group. Okay.
Copy that.
Thank you so much. All right. I think it's time to turn it over to our chair for his monthly update.
I remember to unmute this time. All right, let's see. Where's my update? I guess it's right here. I'm going to leave it in preview for here. If anybody can still read that, fine, as I scroll down. Okay, we talked about the EPA NPL Superfund status proceeding, and thanks for the update from the EPA. We have this little diagram here that I created that kind of takes you through all of the information that I could glean from the several emails and try to put them together in kind of structure. But down here was the comments during that public comment period. But we also have I put together this spreadsheet of all the comments where it has all those same links to the EPA's comments, but these you have to download. But on our link, the links that I've downloaded all those and shared them with the SRSW card G drive. And on these, you can, once you get the preview, you click on it and you can immediately go to it. And then when you close that, you're right back to the next one. So you can scroll down. Now, the way this works on the comments is that if there's a comment from, like, for instance, my comment for SRSW isn't a separate file, it's the original comment. And this is the text of the original comment. So I numbered that 0 because it doesn't have an attachment, but I had 14 attachments. Well, actually 15 because this is the actual letter that started, that says here's all these comments, and here this explains the different parts of it, and but that's how it works. So there's a hierarchy. There's a comment, and then there's attachments. And I've got this sorted in reverse date order. So these are the later. It looks like there's 157 comments, but there's actually 4 slots that are used back in their numbering system that are just for describing the site itself. So there's 153 comments, and these are the ones that were sent in, or at least posted last. And these, I've got these color coded as green if they were a CARD entity that made the comment. So we have Dan Bicknell on Global Environmental Allowance making a couple comments, SRSW, some more from Dan. Here's the private ones, even though they might have been CARD members, they're not, they're not an entity associated with CARD, they're just an individual. Those are in regular dark font. James is part of our board, so he has an extensive comment here. And there were some attachments that he had too. So these are all color coded as green. Then we get down to Gelman's comments, which I've appropriately color coded as brown. And there were a number of these, and they had to do it in 3 sections. And it gets a little confusing in here because in the top of their comments, they would say, this is attachment 1 of part 2. But when it shows up on the EPA site, then of course it's bumped down 1 because there's a header here. So just don't be confused by that. They're all, it took a while to to match these up to get them right. And then we go into a lot of personal comments about this. And occasionally there's another one from a CARD entity. Here's the official CARD comment that was, pretty brief in this one attachment here that's anybody can click on and get to. And again, Rita and Scioto Township have their comments, more private comments. Yeah, so that's basically it. So this is a convenient way for anyone to, and here's Allen Creek's, here's Vince's lengthy comment about the near surface groundwater and et cetera, and the Sierra Club. So this is just a convenient way to summarize all this. Maybe there's a way to get this from the EPA site, or maybe there will be some way to do that in future NPL listings. So that it took me several days to hammer this out, to pull everything together and put it up. And if anybody sees any mistakes in it, let me know. But I'm trying to be pretty accurate and precise on this. So if anybody wants to read about why the rationale for why this should be an NPL Superfund site, please read through these comments. What else? So that's the NPL Superfund status.
Roger, can I just interrupt and tell everybody there's a link for that on the agenda, or did you already say that?
There's a link on the agenda, but there's a link to this whole thing I'm going through on the agenda too. So you don't always just have to go back to the video to watch it. You can, back here on the agenda, wait a minute, I think I'm wrong. Here we go. This is it, right?
Yeah, thank you for doing that. It's on the agenda. I'll just leave it on the agenda under our EPA NPL
Oh, that's the
comment.
minutes. Wait a minute. I think I gotta. Here it is. Yeah, if you go to the agenda, there's a link here. I always put a link into this my card updates, and you can go back and look through those from the minutes and from the agendas, and get, you know, if somebody's new to this site, that would be a good place to start, is just to go through the card updates. I tried to do a summary and a pretty forthright with a lot of visualizations and things, so maybe help people get up to speed more than trying to read through you know, somebody else's summary. I try to cover everything that's important at the time. So I have 2 or 3 years worth of card notes that are out there. Is that good enough, Beth?
Well, it's also up under EPA NPL comments, as all comments is indexed by card, you put.
This
So,
particular link, yeah, this.
yeah, because
yeah.
that's a good reference. I mean, you spent a lot of time doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, because it's a link, you can put it more than one place, and it does take up more space. So it doesn't matter where you click on it, it goes to the same place. So again, that was this. Let's go back to where we left off. This is basically a leftover from last month's. So these links are particular card and SRSW comments and the attachments in this diagram that I already showed you. Any questions on the EPA MPL listing before I go on to the permit issue, the other key decision point we're at? See none. So this is the notice I put on SRSW for the public hearing on June 20th, 6 to 8 p.m. It will be virtual via Zoom. To attend or ask questions, go to this link. I'll go ahead and bring that up so you can see what it looks like. So it's basically a form you fill out. You put in your name, first and last names, your email address, and then answer these questions and then register. And then you will get a link to the hearing, to the public hearing and public meeting and public hearing. So again, this is all part of this my card update. Now, what are the issues with the permit? The main issue that's different, that was the first draft of it was going to be different, was that Eagle attempted to tighten the daily maximum discharge from 22 parts per billion to 9 parts per billion. That's if Gelman messes up, they can right now dump up to 22 parts per billion as a daily average, daily maximum into the tributary of Honey Creek. In their first draft of this, the Water Resources Commission, is that what it's called? Water WRC?
No.
Anyway, the permit people thought a 9 would be a better limit, because that's what the company has achieved in 99% statistical over the last several years, that most of the time they're under 9. So we thought it could stay under 9 because that's what they've been doing. But the company came back and said, well, actually, their system sometimes gets overwhelmed when there's a new purge well that comes on, like in TW24 came in and had some, even though they knew it was higher concentrations, they said, well, there's actually more bromate or more bromide in the groundwater. So because of their ozone treatment system, The more bromide means there's more bromate in the effluent. So even though the dioxin was being treated, the bromate wasn't. So the bottom line is Gelman is trying to get by with an undersized treatment system rather than updating it to best available technology to match the scale of the problem and protect the public. In other words, they didn't define their problem before they threw a solution at it. And now they're trying to get by with a solution that's undersized for the actual problem. And that should not be acceptable. That already happened at Evergreen. They had a system that could treat from 500 parts per billion all the way down to non-detect, less than 1 part per billion, because they didn't know how much dioxin was making it to Evergreen. So when that system got overwhelmed, they had to hustle around and find a solution for that. And rather than upgrading the system, they chose to build a $2 million pipeline, bypassing local rules, because with that deep pipeline, it's under the, I guess, what oil companies do for horizontal drilling and things like that. They didn't have to get local approval to make this big pipeline back to the core. And that's when the IPC, the predecessor to this group, CARD, was formed. The Intergovernmental Partnership Committee was when the local governments got together and say, you know, they're bypassing the rules that we would have in effect to protect the public, and we want to have a say in this. So that's how the IPC got formed, to respond to issues like that, as issues came up. And then, of course, CARD got formed in 2005, 2006, eventually, to respond more formally, to get ahead of the problem and not just respond to decisions that came up. So that's why we're all here today, is because Gelman had an undersized system at Evergreen that wasn't handling the problem. And the local units got involved at that time to try to get a better solution. So there's a little history there for everyone. Now, getting back to the 22 parts per billion versus 9 parts per billion, and TW24 was the purge well that they put in, say, recently, even though that well was drilled in 2017, but they started using it in 2011 or so. 2021 or so. And it had such high concentrations in high bromate that caused the problem. Bromide, that caused the problem with the bromate levels being too high. And this link here, which I covered in a previous update, talks about that and shows where that is, and you know what that was all about. With you know, TW24 was supposedly 2,000 to 4,000 parts per billion, was outside. It wasn't showing, those high levels were not showing on Gelman's maps. So this is the whole dialogue that talks about that. So if anybody wants to dive deep into that issue. But it basically comes back to Gelman's failure to adequately define the magnitude of this problem, and it comes back to bite them. And they want relief from the public and from the regulators instead of having to do what's necessary to clean it up. This is another rehash of that. This is particular, back in 2014, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. This is this is the one I have to interject here, because this is from a document we just got. Dan Bicknell obtained this, and maybe Josh, you're still on. Have you seen this, Josh? Have you seen this this document? Gelman comments from August 1, 2023.
No, I haven't.
Here it goes on. Gelman spent a lot of time putting this together to argue that they don't need to, they should be living with the 22 rather than the 9, and here's why, and yada yada, and whining. If only they would put this much effort into making the system better. Or another solution would be, instead of using ozone oxidation where you have to worry about bromate, go back to the system that we know works in the past, UV oxidation, which apparently doesn't create bromate. Now it costs twice as much to run it, but you can treat to non-detect from these very high levels. Non-detect. So the company, in order to save money, was allowed to go to ozone oxidation and create a new carcinogen bromate, dumped at about the same concentration that dioxin was being just dumped. And the company could easily have a solution here to go back to a UV oxidation and treat to non-detect. And then they can pump higher levels. They don't have to worry about bromide as much, if at all, or if they do. If there was bromate being created during their use of UV oxidation at Evergreen, we never learned about it. So either there's no bromate being created from UV oxidation, or somebody didn't tell us. But I'm going with the former, that there's no bromate created with UV oxidation. Now, the other connection here, of course, is that who makes one of the best UV oxidation systems that's in place, for instance, in Phoenix, to treat their dioxin problem that they caught too late and they have to treat it before they deliver it to the people? Trojan UV systems. Trojan UV was a subsidiary of the same holding company, Danaher, that owns Gelman now. Now, just last year, I don't know if I mentioned this at the last meeting, but just found out last year, Danaher spun off Trojan UV and some similar companies, subsidiaries that they had, as a separate company to be maybe one more arm's length away from a solution that would help here at Gelman. Now, I don't know if that was a conscious decision by lawyers to say, well, that's not our company anymore. That's owned by this other company, which of course is still owned by Danaher. But it's too suspicious of timing on that. Anyway, so this is kind of a big deal. There is a solution. The company could just go back to UV oxidation and maybe take care of it. Before I go on to the next topic, any questions that people might have on that? Because I covered a lot of ground there.
Well, we're still with you, Roger. Appreciate it.
Okay. This is just a rehash from last time, where I found that Rockworks, the same modeling program that Eagle's been using to show where the plumes are, I wondered how many other sites are using Rockworks. So I went on to search and I found this case study on Rockworks' own site. And I said, boy, that looks familiar. And look how cool it is. It's got all this extra stuff. I haven't seen any of this stuff before. And all these years of year by year of what the plume probably looked like using their modeling. How is it that they're using this for their marketing tool to say Rockworks is so great, but we haven't seen any of this through Eagle? Isn't this an Eagle site? Wasn't there an agreement that, okay, you're going to use our site to do marketing? We should be at least be able to show this to our citizens. I don't know if this was even thought about. And you know, this is a question, I guess, to ask of whoever works with whoever picked Rockworks and works with them on a daily basis. Rockworks is apparently going to be, and this is what I would have asked Chris if he was here, and I sent an email about this earlier. We still don't have data. We normally get within a month or two at the end of the year about what's the what are all the readings that we have through 2023. And it seems to be that data is in the Rockworks modeling. You know, we can export all the data from Rockworks, but it's not in the same format that we use to do our visualizations. And yet here's a visualization in Rockworks that we didn't get through Eagle. There's a disconnect there. I encourage people to go to this video and watch. It's a nicely done marketing video, and it shows what you can do with Rockworks. It also shows that there might not be enough data for the model to show what's really happening. If you look at these year by year plume models that Rockworks creates, you can see dioxane pops up, and then it's breaking out on you, and then it's gone, and then it goes back down. This is not a good picture of reality, because you have these gaps. You know, dioxane appears and disappears. It appears and disappears. That's not how dioxane works in the real. If you look at the actual data, you don't see a lot of fluctuation in individual levels of dioxane. You certainly don't see it area-wise. So it just shows that there's either not enough continuous monitoring, or they're using the wrong time scale factor on their modeling. But this is a very interesting. This video goes on to do vertical profiling, 3D kind of thing, to show what might be happening at different layers as the plume spreads. But again, there might not be enough data to populate the model to get good results.
So Roger, James has his hand up.
Yeah, just a second. Let me get back to where I was here. I can close this video. And yeah, so these are the different things you can do with it. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, James.
Yeah, and a question for you, Roger, or really anybody on the call. You mentioned the spinoff of Trojan from Danaher. Does that change the force descent decree, and is Danaher still the responsible party, or is Trojan now an entirely separate entity and therefore the responsible party with respect to the force descent?
Well, the Trojan has nothing to do with the Gelman site. It was always a separate subsidiary, but now it's one level deeper on the subsidiary side.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in think of the organization structure. You know, you got Danaher and you got subsidiaries, and what Danaher did is they took several of these subsidiaries and spun them off as another node in their organization chart. That's the way I look at it. So, but Gelman is still over here, separate from whatever this new entity is. That I think it starts with A something. I have it.
But Gelman is Danaher, correct?
Gelman formed into Paul Corporation, which became Paul Life Sciences. When Danaher bought Paul Life Sciences, there actually probably two entities at Danaher at that time. One was the Paul Life Sciences with the money-making side, the intellectual property that was developed here in Ann Arbor, the Gelman intellectual property, and the other entity would be Gelman Sciences Incorporated, which is the cleanup, the skeleton cleanup that's going on. So that's the way I look at it, is that there's really two entities under Danaher that relate to Gelman. One is the intellectual property, the filters manufacturing, and the other one is the cleanup.
So Gilman Sciences is the responsible party in terms of
Right.
the fourth consent decree.
Right, and Danaher is fully responsible for that.
All right. I think you answered my question, just need to be sure, but you're saying that there was a possible change of status with respect to that.
Yeah, the organization chart changed, but the solution that might help here over on this side is one level deeper in the organization. You can't just, it's not peer to peer, it's peer up one level over,
Interesting.
If you were running Danaher and you were interested in promoting how one of your subsidiaries can do a great job on cleaning up dioxin from groundwater, you would want to use that system and say, this is our system. It's so good. It can solve the problem at this world's, the nation's largest contamination of dioxin of its type in the country. Wouldn't you want to?
Interesting.
Wouldn't you want to promote? Wouldn't you want to promote your subsidiary to help with this other problem you have? But it's cheaper apparently to argue in court and to spin that off. Make that a little. Well, don't worry about them. They're a separate company now. We don't have anything to do with them anymore. That's the way I look at it. Is that they're. The Danaher is not looking to make the world a better place. They're looking to make money. And once people that are buying their product understand that, that might affect their marketing.
Interesting.
You want to promote it. You want to help a company that's trying to make the world better. Not make it better according to what's really needed, not just what your finance people says. We can get away with this if we just do it this way.
Well, you just gave more of a case for EPA involvement just by that statement alone.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have EPA to work with in the years to come.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yeah. I got to take this call. I'm gonna turn it over to. I'll call him back. I got a service people coming to take care of a problem here today, and I got to call him back in a minute. But anyway,
pick up your cell phone.
So anyway, the one last thing I have is just a rehash of from last time, from March, I guess it was. This goes back to the thing I mentioned earlier about it's part of the settlement from back in 2014 for the $5 million of fines that back then the DEQ had against Gelman. They settled for 10 cents on the dollar. So they got $500,000 to do all, I guess, past and future sampling paid for by the company. 500,000 for as long as it's going to take.
Give me your phone.
But at the same time, this is where the company said, well, you got so much information about our site out on your website. Can you kind of tone that down a little bit? And as far as sampling, do you really have to share all that data as quickly as you've been doing it? And so those are, issues that are still outstanding, or maybe if they've settled, there's been settled in secret and we don't know about it. But we're seeing indications of that because we still don't have Gelman's database that we can do our visualizations with. So the kind of visualization you see behind me here, can't do that yet because we still don't have that data. Anyway, I'll terminate my update right now because I've got to make this phone call to schedule this guy for after our meeting. Any questions?
Well, thank you for your update. I see no questions or comments. So I guess we're gonna move on to non-agenda items. Does anybody have anything to comment on that was not on the agenda? I see no hands there. Reminder that our next meeting is July 2nd at 6 p.m. I look forward to seeing all of you. Thanks, Roger, and everyone else.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
the effort.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I know.
Bye-bye.
Great meeting, folks. Thank you.
Who's baby?
You were not. That's my new grandson who was born at 1 o'clock this morning.
Congratulations.
He's the backup for the namesake. Yeah, he was
That's great.
about 3 weeks early, but anyway, all good. A lot happening here at the Rayle household.
Mazel tov.
Now I got to go get the refrigerator repairman. Our refrigerator's acting flaky, getting too hot, too warm, too cold, and somebody's coming in to check the thermostat. All right.
Bye, Roger. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.